Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Something big's going on because normally you fly in the parking lot of the coffee shop at T-minus 18 seconds to live. Today, you were there. I don't know, did you camp out last night?
Yeah, that's a good thing. So you're right. Lately, I mean, my calendar has just been pressed from minute to minute.
Oh, you think so?
Every minute's countable.
You're crazy. Right? I mean, you are so over.
But I've been really diligent lately, and I'm being more diligent to make, and I don't miss. It's not like I'm late, but I come in hot a lot of stuff, no, man, it's super early on Saturday morning so that we come in and we start at 6 a.m.
Well, it's super early here, Central time. But
I know I'm really excited about today.
That's why I thought you were here early.
I got a pep in my step today, really, really cool stuff. So, it's always great to be in the coffee shop with you. Shout out to Brian.
Right?
Brian makes all the wires are plugged in.
Audio Hive,
Chicagoland.
Yeah, and we say that like he's a sponsor or something. We don't make any money, so no one really sponsors us. My sponsor sponsors me.
Boy, I love that saying. That's really cool. So.
Yeah, but it's good stuff. I would like to dive in pretty quickly.
Let's go to deep
because you connected with Jermaine. How many times does that happen to you?
None. Thanks, Mike.
Well, and that's all right.
First time, Mike.
People call me Mark, so I'm like, no, but it's Mike. I mean, it's clearly a different. Yeah. So,
Mr.
Jermaine. Yeah. So you connected with him on.
So we're out there on social media. Trust me, we're not the Joe Rogan show.
We're not.
No. Oh. We don't know what we're doing yet, but we have social media out there, right? And I connect with a lot of people. And so I recently connected with Jermaine. He's an author, great, and I spent an artist. I literally spent 8 minutes, right? But I just felt such a vibe, such a connection. I listened to a couple of his clips of stuff he does. And I'm like, and we connected. He's like, hey, I'm like, hey, we're in the studio 6 a.m. and he's on California time.
So it's like 4 a.m. I mean,
it's 4 a.m. So
my opening question, this is very profound. So think about it because it's going to be about your art or your authorship. Okay. Is 4 o'clock in the morning when the party used to end or when it used to start for you?
That's a great question.
Right? Because my 4 a.m.s, that was the party winding down.
It was definitely winding down around 4 a.m. for me, for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, author, artist. I threw the artist thing in there. It's I'm neither one of those, but I like to draw stick figures. And I hack a blog for Sober.Coffee, can be found on the website under writings, and but I'm neither one of what you are, but I'm sure I'm something that you're not. I just by the end of this coffee, maybe I'll figure that out.
Hope so.
Yeah. So before we hand it over to you, Jermaine, normally we read the book. He's an author of a book called Autopsy of My Former Self.
Love that title.
Can't wait to dive in, but. We didn't have a chance. This happened so quickly. We didn't have a chance. Our production team, meaning Mike, and so hey, Jermaine, we'll bounce it to you. Just hear your story of experience, strength, and hope. What happened, what you did, and where you are now. Because I know you have a good string of sobriety going on. So welcome, great to have you.
Welcome, Jermaine.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, gentlemen. I appreciate you having me on your wonderful podcast. I had an opportunity this week since we connected. To go through some of your episodes, and if I wasn't in love before, I fell even deeper in love with what you two represent and your vision and your mission. And my life, I've been sober for 12 years now.
Yeah, that's great.
And everyone has a testimony. And someone once told me, if you don't write your story, somebody else will share it, and it won't be as accurate. And so I wanted to not only share my story for those that either are going to go through it or are currently going through it, but I've also dedicated my life to educate folks on the possibilities outside and after their addiction or their chemical dependency. And so I've dedicated my life for 12 years now and really advocating and being at the forefront of just helping others that are in that space.
Wow, that's absolutely awesome. 12 years. And now, can I ask, what was your addiction of choice that got you to this point? Was it alcohol, drugs, combination thereof?
It was alcohol. I was always afraid of drugs. I always felt like I had at least somewhat control of my drinking. And the thought of ingesting something or putting something in my body that I felt I didn't have control over kind of scared me.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just crazy because I was the same way. I let alcohol obliterate my life, but I would never do a drug because I was always afraid that I would get drug tested at work. And, I just didn't want to get caught, but I let alcohol just tear my life apart.
Right. Interesting observation, Jermaine.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to my childhood too. I've seen, my father was a drug addict, wonderful man, but he had his own set of demons. And so I've seen the effects of what drugs does to someone, not only emotionally, but, their family as well as physically. And that's just a route that I didn't necessarily want to take, but I also didn't necessarily want to become an alcoholic either. It's just something that kind of evolved over a period of time. But I am excited to share, that I have been sober for 12 years. It's something that I wear with like a badge of honor. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what got you to the point some 12 years ago? Tell us a little bit about kind of where you were and what your bottom or your wake up point was, either your bottom or your new low, new high.
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking. So everyone has their own form of rock bottom, right? Mine just happened to be in the form of slipping into a coma, alcohol related, and eventually on life support for 3 weeks. And look, for 10 years, I was a heavy drinker. We're talking, waking up, drinking vodka at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Who in the world would do that? Who does that?
So, roughly 100% of the people in the coffee shop right now.
I did it midnight, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock.
And then that would go on until 11 p.m., when my body finally settled down. And that was consistent. So at the height of my drinking, I would drink about 32 ounces of vodka a day. And that went on for probably a good 4 years straight. I started seeing a lot of the effects of it throughout my body over a couple of years, but I ignored them because my addiction was more important to me at that time. It was my driving force. And then it came to a screeching halt when I could no longer fight it physically anymore, and it almost took me out. And
quite literally, I mean, put you into a coma. That's scary stuff right there.
It is scary stuff, and I tell you, when I was able to, come out of that space and begin my journey, I just remember my parents walking into the hospital, and it was this terror on their face that I never wanted to have them experience again. And that really started like the turning point for me. Is I just didn't want to disappoint my parents, specifically my father, but I also didn't want that terror in their eyes that I saw once I woke up.
Wow, awesome. So you begin this trek then. Hey, did you stay away from lawyer problems, problems? Did you? Good for you.
I did. I don't have a criminal record. I was able to stay out of that space. I never got a DUI, even though in the book it does share multiple moments where I sure as hell should have been. DUI. So I dodged those moments. But never any. I was so lucky not to have any legal issues from it.
Right, isn't that awesome? But still a lot of wreckage that you had to fix probably those first few years of sobriety.
Yeah, because you were talking about regaining, because I lost the ability to walk. So even once I came to, I lost the ability. I had temporary paralysis on my right side, and there's this sobering moment where I describe in the book where it's 2 a.m. in the morning. The nurses are at their station, and I just wanted to feel normal again. I just wanted to use the restroom like a normal human being. I tried to get out of bed, and when my foot touched the floor, I didn't feel it, so I fall flat on my face. And there was this moment where I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea why I couldn't walk. I just remember walking in and in that moment realizing I couldn't walk to the restroom.
Wow. Wow.
And that was pretty traumatizing, mentally, and of course, the physical aspect of it. So there was a healing portion physically, then there was a healing portion emotionally, and then there was really gaining the trust of my family and friends that I had broken over a decade period.
Right. Did you plug into any programs? Any spirituality or any street programs, things like AA or the other recovery programs out there? Was that part of your story or part of your path?
It actually was, and like most addicts, I rejected it early.
Sure.
So midway point within the first 5 years, it was offered to me multiple times, and then you get to those points where you just kind of feel you just are exhausted of it, and you want help. And
you get tired of being tired.
You just get tired of being tired. And in my particular case, I was uneducated on the dangers of detoxing without medical assistance. And so I tried to stop cold turkey after year 5 and had a grand mal seizure within 24 hours. That put me in the hospital for about a day. I was released, and I said, okay, I'm done with this. But after 30 days, the cravings began, and I fell back into it again. So then I went on a couple year stretch, and I was like, okay, fine. I'm a little more educated. Let me wean myself off of it. So I tried personally weaning myself off of it. And in 48 hours, I had another grand mal seizure. And so after I was released from the hospital, that final rock bottom moment, the physician for Kaiser actually called me and he said, hey, young man, you have a bright future ahead of you. I don't normally make these calls, but there's just something about you. He was like, would you be interested in an inpatient program or an outpatient program? And I said, well, neither. Let me call you back.
Good answer.
Item C.
Yeah, right.
None of the above.
Give me some better options. Can I drink and have fun?
Well, it just, you know what it was? I wasn't quite ready to accept that I had an addiction, even amongst the rock bottom moment I had.
Sure.
I wasn't ready to look in the mirror and accept accountability for what I not only had put myself through, but my family through. So a week later, I'm alone. I'm healing physically. I have a physical therapist that comes in 3 times a week. And I called him back. And I said, hey, I'm not really comfortable going to an inpatient program. They scare me. But can you offer me the outpatient program? So I ended up going into an outpatient program where I showed up every day between 8 and 5. So I approached it like a 9 to 5 job.
Like a day hospital program.
I'm sorry?
Like a day hospital program. You check in the morning, you check out at night.
Yeah, and I had never I'd never been to a therapist before, so they offered therapy sessions as well. So that was new to me. So the whole experience was new to me. And there was a moment when I was sitting there in these spaces, in these circles, listening to everyone's traumatic stories. And I started to feel like a victim. And then within the first week, I switched and I said, I'm not a victim. I mean, I was in control of everything I did. And so then I became a student of it. And when I became a student of it is when I started to really evolve and see the growth that I needed to do in order to consistently live a sober life.
I love that. That is so part of my story. And I was gonna interject when you were talking because it sounded that was your choice to go and you embraced it. And that's what I did when I went in to an inpatient program. And I thought, well, I'm here. And I'm going to become a student of it. My adult daughter had given me a book, a binder, and she said, Dad, take notes, learn what you can learn. And I took that phrase, that book, and I became a student, and I've said that often, so I can absolutely relate to that. Because I wanted it. I didn't want what I had. I wanted something new. I had no idea what new was, but I wanted something new. So I love that. And I'm still a student. That's why we're here this morning. It's because I'm still a student. I want to learn from you,
So question. So you went the AA route?
I did.
So you worked all 12 steps? Kind of go into that part of the story and how that worked for you.
So I worked at 12 steps. And, I think one of the hardest parts of the 12 steps for me was reaching out to those that I had hurt and asked for forgiveness. Because when I first got and graduated from the class, I had this weird chip on my shoulder And I was like, anybody that had ever like doubted me or anybody that ever, didn't support me, I'm cutting you out of my life. And I did that for several months. I was like this really angry individual. And I didn't know where that anger was coming from. And I kept reflecting on the 12 steps program and how important that was for me for my healing and evolution. And at some point in time, I was able to settle down, realize it didn't serve me, that loving on others is what served me more. And so I was able to call these individuals and ask for forgiveness, as hard as some of them were. Let me tell you, I did it anyway, because that was part of my healing and part of my reconciliation of the relationship.
So what was your favorite one? You don't have to mention names per se, but what was the one that probably impacted you the most from steps 8 and steps 9?
As far as the steps?
Yeah, steps 8. No, the amends that you made.
Was there one amend? Was there one
that really stuck out
for forgiveness that really kind of you felt the relief of that old bitter weight of the old bitter self into this kind of new free one? Was there one in particular, without, like Glenn said, without mentioning names, did you have one of those moments where it was like, wow, am I glad I did that?
Yes, but it didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go.
Oh.
So, this one was my daughter's mother. And she and I got together at the beginning stages of my alcoholism. And so for a couple of years, unfortunately, she had to deal with that portion of my life. And, when you separate and you have a child, it can go one or two ways. It can go that you guys are, you have a cohesive relationship and your daughter is the focus, or there could be a lot of bitterness and resentment that's involved. Mm-hmm. And in this particular case, there was resentment. So she was the actual last person out of everybody that I reached out to. And the reason why is because I was avoiding it.
Sure.
And I sent her a text message, and it was a really polite text message, just saying my apologies and I've moved on. I'm a new person. And her response was, why are you texting me? I moved on with my life. And why that was so important is because for the first time, I had to learn how to apologize without reciprocation.
I love it.
I had to apologize and not expect the result that I was looking for. That's where the evolution came for me, is realizing that just because you apologize doesn't necessarily heal the wound.
Right.
Yeah, so that's steps 8, and Mikey and I have talked about this a lot. Steps 8 and 9, at least for me, amazingly impactful, right? But I work with a lot of people in, kind of setting it up, right? So if you work with a sponsor and try to set the expectation, it has nothing to do with their response. It has everything to do with us lowering our ego, us being remorseful, right? Us being willing to clean our side of the street, and that's the freeing part. It's nice when the other side reciprocates and understands, and I'm sure you have some of those examples. But at the end of the day, you cleaned your side of the street, regardless of how the other person responded. And what I've also seen is they may not respond in real time, but people recognize the pain of, like, I recently went through a conversation, and I mean, I caused a lot of pain with my alcoholism, right? And it was 10 years later, and this person finally came around and say, hey, you know what? When you first came to me, I didn't really trust you. I thought it was more your words, but you have done this for over 10 years. Like, you're not messing around. Mm-hmm. And like, and all they said was, we're okay. That's all it wasn't some grand fanfare. It wasn't,
we're okay.
And you know what the funny thing was? That their response didn't impact me at all.
Right.
Like, I mean, I didn't go and, it's just evidence of how this works. And so I'm glad you shared that, Jermaine. It's not all, unicorns and rainbows, but our job is to clean our side of the street.
That's all we can do. That's all we're responsible for. And I remember up until recently, when I say recently, almost 4 years ago, I'm at my father's funeral service. And I'm standing up and I'm sharing my feelings towards my father. I'm obviously really emotional. Him and I had a great relationship. And one of my best friend's mothers, she's there at the service. And for a long time, she didn't trust me. And every time I would come over the house and visit during the holidays, she'd be like, okay, what year are you on? I would like 6 or 7 or 8. And there was still like this resistance, right? Like you'll just backslide anytime.
Yep.
And it made for a really uncomfortable experience. And what made me feel good was after the service, she gave me a big hug. She said, I don't know what it was, but hearing you on stage, I knew that you were going to be okay. And to me, that was validating because this was someone that raised me like a second mother. And I felt like a child again, as though I needed that final piece of validation, especially in an emotional time like burying your father, right? Any amount of empathy and love was welcomed. But it was in those moments that I realized that I was, making an impact, whether someone said it from afar or not, that I was changing my life, I was headed in the right direction, and I was evolving as a human being.
That is awesome. Is this stuff, are these stories, are these covered in your book? I mean, how's the book framed out? Because you decided to write this book. How is that kind of orchestrated? Same thing? Are you storytelling or?
Yes, great question. So the book really starts. So my approach to it was just journaling at first. I was journaling the grief of my father. And so these journals turned into 1 journal, 2 journals, 3 journals, 4 journals, 5 journals. And I started reading a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by an author, Bronnie Ware. And Bronnie Ware actually has ultimately helped me pitch my manuscript to publishing companies. And because after I read it, I just had this like epiphany. I was like, I wonder if I could turn these into a book that can help a ton of people that are either struggling or recovering. And so, and then another part too is I was following this young artist named Young Pueblo. And I went to go see him speak in San Francisco. And he was talking about his sobriety journey and his alcoholism and sharing his stories. And I remember sitting in that seat and I said, I can do that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that. And so I started comprising all these journal writings into this 350-page book. So to answer your question in its entirety, all of this is in the book.
Wow.
So it starts with my fractured childhood. And sometimes it's not just something big that happens that changes your life. It's the small fractures over a period of time that crack the dam. And so it starts out with this compelling story, almost written like a horror film, with me being in the hospital and realizing that I had temporary paralysis. Then it jumps into when I got home and I was wheelchaired in. And then it starts to talk about my childhood and then the evolution and all the crazy stories in between. So it's this incredibly, what I feel like beautifully written, like Alfred Hitchcock, Stephen King, Malcolm Gladwell kind of morphed literature.
Wow, that's awesome. There's a couple things that jump out at me. Number one is a humorous thing because that's just the way my brain works. But my partner here, Glenn, I love what he says, or at least what his wife says, is, honey, people don't really want to know the ground level, Glenn. Can you keep it at like 3,000, 30,000 feet? I mean, that's impressive enough. And I'm thinking if Glenn ever wrote a book, I could just see Jen saying, "Oh, yeah, no, bring it up a little bit."
She would not read it.
Put it back up in the air. The other thing that really jumps out at me, I went through this exercise for my 4th step. And I began to chronologize, whatever that word is, put into chronicle, order of my life. And it's amazing how many things I remember as I put it in a bulleted item. Okay, then that happened. Then I was this old, and I have this memory and that memory, good memory, bad memory, whatever. But you are so right. The exercise of doing that, and then I retouch that about every 6 months. I look at that sequential life in bullets, and it's both painful, it's refreshing, it's rewarding, it's dark, it's bright, but a great exercise to do. And it sounds to me like you kind of did the same thing, and I love what you say. It's those little things. I will hang on a bullet and go, wow, I remember when I was in 5th grade, I remember the impact that had on me. That really changed the course of my life. So I love that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm really proud of this memoir. I'm really, writing it was incredibly liberating for me because it revealed a lot still in me that I need work on. And it also revealed to me, as far as my parents, when I was writing about my childhood, that a lot of times we'll blame our parents for who we've become as an adult. And when I'm writing this book and I'm using these timelines, I'm like, of course my parents were making these mistakes. They were 20 and 18 years old.
Right.
Like at some point I have to give them a break. And then I
Give them some
reflected on,
grace.
Yeah.
you have to give them some grace. And I was reflecting on who I was at 18 and 20 years old, and even reflecting on who I was at 23 years old, having my first child. You're never ready for it. There's no blueprint for it. You're just kind of winging it most times.
Right.
And so I really dove deep into the experience of, and it was a lot of being a child again. And it was really tough too, because some of the stories are, they're tough, right?
Yeah.
They're hard to chew on.
Right.
And so some of them were hard to relive, but it was needed to demonstrate to the audience reading the book a little bit about myself and and why I am the way I am today.
Right.
Yeah, what I like when you use the word crack the dam, right? There's the little pieces, crack here, and then the dam broke, right? The metaphor I use is boiling the frog, right? You put the frog in the water, and every week you turn it up. Because if somebody came to us and said, look, here's your life today, here's your life tomorrow, it's going to be absolute rock bottom. You're like, I'm not signing up for that, right? But it's you progressively go to hell. And alcoholic hell, and you sit there every day, it gets worse, and then you course correct. You're like, man, I lost that. I didn't really like that anyhow. That house was too much, and
they repossessed my car. I didn't like the black one anyway. I was going to get a blue one.
Yeah, you just justify your way right down to alcoholic hell. But I think so that's why I call it boil the frog, because you turn the water up every day, every week, every month. But what I also learned is in recovery. You don't go from rock bottom, to rock star in one day. It gets progressively better. Hey, some weeks it's just flat lines. Some weeks you kind of come down a little, but it's like a stock market, right? Over time, if you're on the right path, over time that line does go up and to the right.
Right. Yeah, this is good stuff. Hey, I absolutely hate to do this. I got a big favor to ask for you.
Oh, Mikey's
I know.
Time
Can
watching.
you come back next week? Because we laid such a great foundation, but there's so many things that when you and I talked for a few minutes this week, we haven't even touched on yet. Your art and more on the book. Can you come back next week? I think, but I'm glad we took this time to get to know you and really kind of get a foundation. Hopefully for some good action items for next week. Can you come back next week?
I'd be honored. I appreciate it.
Most awesome. Yes.
The one thing that I'd like to leave, and I had a relationship with my dad, and I love the fact that the way I understood, if I heard correctly, Jermaine, your dad had a chance to see quite a number of years of you sober, correct? My dad didn't. My dad passed right in the middle of, I was getting some spurts, but so my dad today, what I know, he would be proud of where I'm at today. Both sober and spiritual, and how I love others and not selfish anymore so much. And so I just love the fact that you had like that level of closure, I guess, if that's the right word, with your dad, that your dad saw you come full circle. I love that part of your story. So I can't wait for you to come back.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get into that because I talk about my father quite. I dedicated the book to my father.
Oh, that's outstanding. That's great.
Because my father was an alcoholic as well.
Right.
So he ultimately died of cancer, alcohol related. And his death came really quickly. It was like we found out he had cancer March 31st of 2022, and by April 7th he was out of here.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my.
And so, there's a process that happens when you hear the C word, and then you don't want to pre-grieve them. And so your mind kind of screws you in that way. And then all of a sudden you get a phone call and it's like, well, it's over. No. But as the dust had settled, I realized that we maxed our relationship out.
I had
the most beautiful relationship with my father.
Man, that's awesome.
we didn't reach a ceiling per se, but we were right there.
Yeah.
And so, he was able to see me in my sober space. He was incredibly proud of my art. He would tell everybody if he had a megaphone that reached millions across the world, he would have yelled every morning. And so this week actually was a really emotional week for me, even though it's been almost 4 years, because moments like this moment sharing with you gentlemen, moments like my book release, moments with my my corporate art projects, I just want to call him. I just want to text him.
Right.
But every time I try to, I realize that I can't.
Right.
And so those moments to me are heartbreaking, but also a reminder of the short time we have on this planet and to max it out.
And it's a testimony to his love to you that you think he's still just a phone call or a text away. I mean, you've got him, you've kept him that close. I mean, that's a testimony to his testimony. So, all right, more to come next week, huh? Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jermaine. Really love having you. Thank you.
Have a wonderful weekend. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, see you next week, man.
All right, cheers.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@sober.coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.